Recording in progress, yeah. Well, welcome everybody to Sanctuary Book Club for this day. Ladies Midnight Swimming Club.
Oh,
That
yes.
was quite a
I
book.
loved it.
What a charming book. I wish I had been in the club.
Yeah, yeah, really, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Except I wouldn't have got in the ocean.
yeah, well, that'll be part of the questions, okay? You just hold on.
Jump in the middle, Kelly.
Welcome everybody. And so, how did you enjoy this book?
I enjoyed it. I read it before I went on the trip, and I just took my time and I would read it at night. And I would just, as I said, the fact that it was older women, and everybody was joining in to the helping the one that was so sick and all the young stories too, the romance and of course the English coast is so beautiful. And I've been there and I just kept remembering, times with the surf and I don't know, I just like the whole setting of it.
Yeah, if you've been there before, that really does help you with the
Yeah.
memories of it and the coast and the ruggedness of it and so on and so forth, right? Yeah, yeah.
I
Okay.
just love quaint small towns.
And there's
Yeah.
a lot of them in England, a lot of them.
Really?
One time we took a trip of 10 days and we just went from one quaint town to the other. And it had all been arranged and we stayed in inns.
Oh,
And
nice.
Oh,
inns are different in England than hotels.
Mm-hmm.
Inns, you all go to dinner sort of at the same time. And the question when you arrive is, what tonight is uh, the roast of the joint? Meaning it could be lamb, it could be veal, it could be pork, but it's a major roast that comes out to the dining room.
Huh.
And then it's carved, and you don't have to have that for dinner, but a lot of people do have the roast of the joint for the meal.
Hmm.
So it has a sense of structure to it, but it's all around, of course, the little town that you happen to be in. And a lot of people take a week from their vacation in England and go to one of these inns and just stay there and, experience the sea every day.
Yeah. Hmm.
So that was another thing that I liked about it.
Yeah. Well, did you enjoy the author's writing style?
well, I didn't notice it, so
I
I
was going to
suppose
say
I
it wasn't
did.
memorable to me, so I guess I did.
Well, she told us from different people's perspective, right? She'd say,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
now Niall's going to speak here, and now Elizabeth, and now Joe, and now Lucy, and now Dan, and whatever, right?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
couldn't understand why Dan didn't get together with, I can't say her name, the dog.
Lucy,
Yeah.
you will.
Yeah, that's the way I felt.
I'm reading another book by her right now.
Oh, you are?
It's not the same story, but it's very similar. It's in the same village. What's the name of this village?
Was it Bally Cove?
Yeah. So
Yes.
that's what this one's in that same place, but totally different people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it from a different time frame, Kelly? It seems like I started looking at one too, but it was from the past rather than, this one was almost current time frame.
Yeah, this one, well, it goes forward, but at the beginning, her father's coming home from World War II.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. What about speaking of that water? How did you experience that? The description of Joe and Elizabeth and everybody going into the water. What did that feel like for you?
Terrifying in the dark. All the fish are in there. Seaweed, everything's going to get on your feet. It's going to touch you. Hmm. I don't know how I ever swam when I was younger in lakes and rivers, but I can't do it now. Hmm.
Well, I thought it was just a wonderful feeling. Even I felt it about on my skin even when I was reading it. It was because I have dove into the water when we were campers. You go skinny dipping late at night at the Y camp, and um, I could just feel all that. I just I just it just relished it. It just seemed
I
so,
love the romance of it and thinking about them doing it. I
yeah,
just wondered.
I hear you. And see, with me, it recalled myself having done it and feeling so good. The water washes over your body, and I don't know, it just feels so good if it's a nice hot day and
Yeah,
I,
but this, Cynthia, this was like at late at night and sometimes very cold, you know?
well, I know that, but I that's why I said it reminded me of England. England's very cold, no matter what they tell you.
Yeah,
It's always very cold,
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's always very damp in those little inns and hotels and cottages and all. Those stone cottages are damp. So I that sunk into my soul too.
yeah.
And I don't, one thing that all this swimming I talk about having done and everything, I never liked walking around with a wet head.
Mm, yeah. Well, would you guys, I mean, would you go do something like that if you were there? Would you go engage with them?
Oh, I would have. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell
You
yeah.
would, Kristen.
At least once.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Becky, at least once.
Yeah. And
I,
after that, probably more.
Forgive me for interrupting, Becky, but Toby really appreciated your help and your comments online
Good.
about her health. So I just wanted you to know
Yeah.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was I think it was a real eye opener to her how that all these strangers cared about her.
Yeah.
Yes.
I said, you don't realize you don't know this kind of person. I said, these are different kind of people. I said, I knew that when I came on this trip.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you for telling me that.
Yeah, I thought it was important you know that
Yeah.
Yes.
because we all try to reach out. Sometimes it doesn't go through, but yours went through big and strong.
Oh, good.
Good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, has anybody, you've said you've done that before, Cynthia. Has anybody else ever gone into like really icy cold waters like that on purpose and stayed there? And I mean, she almost was experiencing it as warmth through her body and stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how can you? I mean, I felt, like it was scary or it would be really cold, and yet it was very intriguing to me. It was like, oh, I'd love to do that and just see what it was like. And maybe after you're in the water for a while, you start,
Oh, you warm up. Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
yeah. It's not even, I don't know, like thinking about how cold it is because I recently, a few months ago, had a chance to try a cold plunge.
Oh,
And there was like a little class that we did ahead of time. And they talk about like your breathing exercises, but that the point of it, there are some medical benefits, health benefits, but the extra as an exercise, as an activity, um, it's meant to practice releasing rather than fighting through something. And
oh,
so I actually experienced for myself when you get in and that the first impulse is to like tense up and fight it off and just hold yourself through it. And you just feel the cold. And when you surrender to it, the science behind it is when to surrender, your body actually makes like a little tiny bubble around itself in a sense. That is like your heat, your body heat is kept in. I'm not saying it's warm, but I'm saying that peaceful surrender
yeah.
actually does make it hurt less.
Hmm.
And so, in the sense of like going in a cold ocean and having that experience, there's like an actual mental health aspect to practicing surrender, practicing giving up control, not fighting, but just letting it be and being at peace with it. So it's kind of cool to, I don't know. I'm
I
not,
followed this lady online for a while who would get in this giant bathtub of ice every
uh-huh.
day. So you think that was the same kind of a thing. It was
Yeah.
her mental state.
Yeah. That's why I mean, athletes do it to repair their muscles too, but there's like whole studios where you can just go and practice being cold. Or they say you can just turn your shower on really cold. I'm going to admit I've not tried that because I don't want to. But the ocean is, I think anything out in nature, like in the dark, is quieting, surrender. Um,
Bugs.
I also think of like being at the Jersey Shore. Guys, I'm in New Jersey, and our lifeguards go off duty pretty early, and it was always a thing to like, go out into the ocean at
Oh,
dusk, and it's like quiet, there's nobody else there, and you go out with a couple friends, and it's just peaceful on a peaceful day because it's not always peaceful. You only did that if it was calm enough. But I guess that was my other thought. I was like, how calm is this water where they are?
I think
There,
you
there wasn't
probably,
really any fighting of waves narrated, so I think it was okay. But
yeah.
It seemed
I
like
think,
they were in kind of a cove,
yeah.
where they
yeah.
were. Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, even when you're talking about that and you're talking about surrender and that sort of thing, is there is this kind of a metaphor for something in life? Does it seem like that to you? This going out and doing this sort of swimming almost, by yourself. They kind of went to a place of peace, like you were talking about, and let go of the day's troubles or whatever they are experiencing and stuff, and just kind of let themselves
Well,
be.
she did it by herself for many years.
Right. Yeah.
well, I thought it was a more of to me, a reflection of women bonding.
Mm.
And again, now my first experience with this, when I thought back on it, was in junior high school. My father had in his business trailers, and he fixed one up. And as a treat for my sister and I, he put it out at Lake Michigan campground for a few weeks, and we could invite friends to come out there with us.
Wow, fun.
And it was fun. And I I had 2 nights for me, and I had 3 or 4 girls each night, different
Wow.
friends. Yeah, and
Wow.
my mother was, of course, the chaperone. Well, it was one of those beautiful nights, like they talk about. And we were on the other side of the dunes, and we said we were going to go over the dunes. And my mother said, "Now, girls, don't go in the water because it's dark." Well, you know what we did? We went in the water.
Of course.
So, but we came back, and this one friend who, when I see her at reunions and stuff, I say, "Carol, you were so funny that night." She dove under the water. Her hair was soaking wet. And we came back, and we were walking toward the trailer to get into our beds, bunks. And my mother came out in her, in
Uh-oh.
her robe and said, and it was dark, of course, but she said, "Now you girls, oh, I'm so glad you're back. And now you girls didn't go swimming, did you?" And Carol, of all people, stepped up and said, "Oh, no, Mrs. Marquardt, of course we didn't." And I told her later, I said, my mother didn't say anything for a few weeks. Finally, she said to me, That girl's standing there with that wet hair telling me she hadn't been swimming." Said, "I knew you probably did, but at least you had each other and you're all good swimmers."
Yeah.
So, but no, I thought I thought that was so exciting part of it all, this women bonding, especially when one is so ill, you know what I mean? And everybody's making special efforts. And it was just the idea of the water as a uniting factor. It just really hit me as that too.
Yeah.
Did y'all realize that Stan, right? Dan, the
Dan?
guy, was
Dan.
black? I didn't realize he was black until the very end of the book. I guess I just miss it?
No, I don't think that they said anything about him being black, and
Mm.
right? It was
I
At the
don't,
end, they talked about it because um,
because they took him away because he was not the right color for her husband.
yes, yes.
right.
So because she must have been with a black man that,
Yeah, probably an Indian, would guess in England.
oh, it could be in England.
Oh, in
Yeah,
Indian, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of that, which character did you identify with?
Hmm. Elizabeth.
Elizabeth?
Hmm.
Why, Kelly?
I don't know.
Anybody else?
I didn't specifically identify with any of them, but I saw in each one things, I've felt in my life and, and in my friends' lives, the illness and the, changing of things, the cultural norms and all of that stuff with it were all there. But
Yeah.
no, didn't I identify with one as my thing per se.
Anybody else? Elizabeth
No.
or Joe? No?
You're Lucy, Cheryl.
I'm Lucy?
Yeah.
Think so, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know. Um, well, what were your thoughts and feelings about that home where they, you know, the pregnant girls went?
Oh, I just don't understand.
This,
It didn't seem like it was that long ago to be,
That
you know,
backward.
Yeah.
because, do you think it was because it was a small town? Because it was in England? Because what what made it so? Because you're right, it wasn't like it was all that long ago. What was it, in the 50s or early 60s or something?
Yeah, it
seemed
wasn't
like
last
it.
century or anything.
No.
Mm,
Yeah.
because how old was Elizabeth? And she would have had to go there. She wasn't that old. And Dan is her son, so he was, didn't he say 30s or something? Or he's gonna
Yeah.
turn 40?
Yeah. That's
Oh,
right, Kay, right? He was around 30 something or yeah. I mean, have you guys been around or exposed to things like that, places like that
You
where
know what's
No.
happening in my life, Cheryl? It's interesting you're saying this because at least two of people in my close life, and then two more that I just know of in this town 2,500 people, have gotten the phone call, and it's a baby that they delivered 20 or 30 years ago.
ooh,
Wow.
wow.
Yes, yes. My good friend Elaine, she was the secretary at the Coldwell Banker office. And she was, we all knew she wasn't married. She has a live-in boyfriend, very attractive. She's half African American and half Japanese. Her parents met in Okinawa, and she's got a very culture of respect with her grandmother and her mother and her sister had a baby and then got divorced, but everybody hovers around that child and everything. But so Elaine comes to the office one day and says, well, I got a phone call last night and it was the baby I delivered 30 some years ago. And we all went, what?
Wow.
And she
Hmm.
said, and we live in New Buffalo, which is near Michigan City, Indiana. She lives there. But anyway, she said, I was out of high school. I was 19. I got pregnant and I knew this was my problem. I knew he wouldn't get involved at all. I knew my parents were going to be embarrassed. And I think her father by then had died in an auto accident because I know she's been alone with her mother for a long time and her sisters. But anyway, she said, I looked around and found a home in Kalamazoo, Michigan that would take me. And I didn't waste a minute. I just packed up and quit my job and left for Kalamazoo.
Wow.
And she
Mm.
said, I told my mother and my sisters, but she said, I just knew that there would be too much discussion in the world, etc. And I had to just remove myself. So she
Yeah.
went over to Kalamazoo. The baby was put in her arms and then taken away.
Hmm.
And
Mm.
it was a girl, and she knew that. And so this girl was calling her from Atlanta, Georgia, if you can
Wow.
imagine. But the girls had a lovely life. Her parents were from Kalamazoo, Michigan. She went to college, I think, at Western Michigan. She's very educated. She lives in Atlanta, Georgia. She's married and she has no children.
Hmm.
So Elaine was just tickled pink to know her.
Yeah.
And I've never met her, but she has come here. And then another woman who owned a big women's clothing store that I knew down here, very active in AA. She announced one day, well, the baby I delivered, 30 years ago has two children now, but I found her, she found me online. Everybody finds everybody online.
Yeah.
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 And through genealogy. And she said, she's coming. And all of us later said, boy, did that girl pick the right mother. Because this woman is very wealthy. She has since moved to Florida with her husband. She never had any more children, but she just doted on those grandchildren and that daughter of hers. And the daughter, of course, is another one who has nice parents,
Good.
but she embraced her biological mother. And but the biological mother owning a clothing store, there's those kids want for nothing.
That's awesome.
So
Well, do you guys remember, like in high school, girls disappearing and then maybe coming back, or any of that kind of stuff, or was it just
No.
not a big deal? Huh?
I remember girls leaving high school a little early, and meaning they were pregnant, so they just were they stayed at home from then on.
Oh, they
My
did.
friends didn't do stuff like that.
No,
Oh, Kelly.
I'm a little younger. There was a very, very pregnant girl at graduation, and it was as a freshman, my senior year.
Wow.
It was with lots of whispers and lots of talking about it.
I believe it. Yeah.
But we're past the time of
As I said, you're pretty young.
And interestingly, my sister for a while out of school was substitute teaching in Nevada, in the Vegas area, and in an area that has a lot of immigrants and a lot of lower income, and with that often comes a lot of teen pregnancy because they don't have good education, they don't have a good support system, and the school she was in, nowadays, and I say nowadays, this was actually like more than 15 years ago, they had a nursery at the school. And the
Wow.
girls, the young mothers, they were required to, if they had a baby, they were required to check in certain times a day. They were required to do the feedings themselves at the school on like certain breaks that were like preset. And they had to maintain a certain GPA in order to use the service. But and the idea was like, well, they're already pregnant. Let's at least get them through school, right? So like you're saying,
Right.
the idea of, well, just drop out and disappear. Well, now you don't even have a high school degree.
Yeah.
How do you make a better life for the next generation? So
Yeah.
Well, my school has a course. My school is small. They only graduate about 45, but it's a school of very, very rich kids or very, very not so rich and poor. But the thing is that we get a lot of money infused because we have a casino nearby. And that money goes to the schools to enrich the schools. So we get a lot of special advanced courses. But one thing we have, which I'm very impressed with, you do not graduate without taking this one health class. You take it early on, I think freshman year, sophomore year. And in that class, every kid in that class, boys and girls, takes a baby home over the weekend.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
And a doll, and the baby is programmed.
Oh
to
yeah, the
cry
computer
at certain
ones. Yeah.
times.
Yeah. It's
And
crazy.
you have to respond. And you're graded on that. You have to call in, you have to this. I think that is the best class because
Yeah.
I know some of those kids would help out the real estate office. And I would talk to them, and they, especially the boys, would say, boy, that's a lot of work. Oh my gosh. They had no idea. Of course they didn't. So I think that's what is wonderful today's world. There's more education. And by the way, if someone does get pregnant here, there's in a shopping center very close to the high school, there's an alternative high school where they go a certain number, about 4 hours a day, I think, and get their assignments on computer and get some help. And then, so they're not, if they could go to regular school if they want to, but most of them want to go to that alternative school.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of cool. I mean, it's a lot different now. I mean, that was almost barbaric to me, that the girls almost had to kind of stay there, and it was like for the rest of their lives
Yeah.
they were like sinners, and
Yep.
not allowed to do anything, and made to feel guilty, and made to stay there and help with all the other girls that came in. I mean,
Yeah. No, I've never heard of anything like that in my
Well,
life.
it was a convent. I mean, it's like it was run by a convent, so
Yeah.
yeah,
they had definite ideas of what sin was
yep,
and not much humanity.
not much humanity. That's right. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right, Kay. Well, so Elizabeth had this baby and she thought it died. Did anybody suspect that Dan was Elizabeth's son? Did you, Kay? When did you suspect it?
When I heard Elizabeth's story about that she lost the baby.
Really?
Mhm.
Because you didn't think of, because she said it was dead and whatever.
Well, that's what she was told.
Right.
And when she and Dan went to see the first sister that was the grumpy one. Well, grumpy's not the right word, but and she said that she knew that she had never held this baby. Well, of course she didn't, because every girl that was there was white.
Yeah.
And so she could, without, any, but it would, she was just mean spirited. So that felt awful. But that was as soon as I knew that about Elizabeth, then I was like, oh, he's going to find his mama after all.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, that was very perceptive of you.
Thank you.
did it occur to anybody else?
No,
No.
Not at all, Becky.
no.
I was surprised when she was telling the story. I still was like not getting it until she got halfway through the story about.
Yeah.
I thought something was weird there, but I couldn't figure out what it could be because her baby was dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't know he was black.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh.
So why would they hide him?
Yeah. Then, I mean, at the end, Elizabeth moves into her friend Joe's cottage, right? And was that weird to you guys? Could you have done that? Live in your friend's cottage that died?
I thought that was what was going to happen from the beginning when I knew she wanted to not be where she was.
Yeah, I think when you see these close environments, resources like cottages are seen as things to be shared by the ones you love. And I could see very much she go into her friend's cottage.
I just wondered if it would feel weird to be there. I mean, she felt like, I mean, she even said, Joe said, welcome home or welcome here or whatever, you know. And so it felt, I could see both sides of it. Like, yeah, that's kind of cool. You live there and she's going to be kind of with you in spirit, you know.
Right.
But on the other hand, it's like you think of her all the time, or this is her. I don't know. Lucy couldn't have done it. I mean, she said, I can't stay here. It's where my mom lived. You know, this is where my mom died, you know. But you guys felt didn't bother you that much?
Mm-mm.
No, I thought it was right.
Yeah. What about the ending to this book? I mean, like, all the loose ends all tied in a little nice bow, you know. I mean,
That's the way it's supposed to be.
I was
Oh,
going to say it
Shelley.
wasn't realistic, but it was the way it's supposed to be.
Nice.
so you guys liked it like that? Or did you think it was unrealistic?
No.
No?
Me either.
Oh, you guys must watch a lot of Hallmark, I swear. Oh my goodness. Well, I didn't have a whole lot of other questions other than would you recommend this book to your friends?
Yes.
Yes?
Mhm.
I thought it was good.
Yeah? Why would
Yeah.
you recommend it to your friends, Cynthia?
Because, well, especially my other book clubs, it's all women.
Yeah?
And I think they love reading stories about women and women's culture. And it's a well-written book too. Some of these books, I read and I think, eh, I don't, I don't want to recommend that because it's sometimes very complicated. And I think people want to read a book to relax unless everyone agrees we want to investigate a certain topic. But no, I just think my other book club, by the way, is leading lessons in chemistry, and we did that book.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. Cool.
And I told them all, I said, it's an easy read and you'll be glad you read it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good women's stories in there. You know, women's strength is in that book.
Yeah.
but it wasn't tied up in a bow for us.
No, that one wasn't tied up in a bow, for sure.
No, no, not at all. But you sure learned a lot, and we saw a lot of sexism and everything, and she overcame a lot. So,
Yeah.
but this book, yeah, it's a nice story. And of course, I live in nature, fortunately, and I'm surrounded by nature. And um, that book just immersed me in nature. And I like it when they talk about nature, the trees, the water. They use a lot of descriptive words. I like that.
Yeah. What about the rest of you? You recommend it to your friends and why?
It's a pleasant, enjoyable read.
Yeah.
Good ending.
Yeah, it's a nice read. I feel very lucky to have like a lot of long-term friends. I hope in another 20, 30, 40 years we're still friends.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, folks, Elizabeth and Joe for sure were friends their whole lives, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
So did you anticipate that it's possible that, Dan and Lucy will get together?
Oh
I
yeah.
keep waiting for it.
I think it will happen.
Yeah. Well, she gave a couple of clues for it, right?
Hmm.
You like it.
Yeah.
He wants to live in the same house that she has, so.
There you go.
Hmm.
Mhm.
What else, gang? It wasn't a very complex book that took a lot of,
No, no, no,
takes us to some, real heavy duty discussion.
no.
It was nice.
It was
I
nice.
thought it was interesting that he wrote about her, Elizabeth, and he didn't know he was her mom. She was his
Oh,
mom.
that is interesting, isn't it? That he wrote the
Mm-hmm.
book about her and not knowing that that was his mom.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
That is interesting. Yeah. Huh.
I think at the point that he said that he was saying that, I was starting to think that she might be his mom. There was some connection. It was obvious. She was trying to show that they had a connection the whole book.
What made you think that?
Well, I can't think of a specific examples, but a lot of the things that I thought he would have done with Lucy, he was doing with Elizabeth.
Mm. What what about Niall? We didn't talk about him at all.
Yeah, he's a kid.
I'm glad he didn't go with his dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I think that if she hadn't given him permission to do what he thought he needed, he might have. He might have fought it and never been happy.
Yeah.
She did the right
Yes.
thing.
Well,
But
and
also that was kind of a coming of age type of story too. He'd always been in what do you call them? The schools, the boarding schools and stuff like that. And so he'd never been able to be kind of a normal kid, right?
Right.
And, yeah. So that was kind of a coming of age story. Did you have something, Kay?
Yeah, well, it was, he took the phone call when his dad was calling for his mom. He ended up being the one that was home and took the phone call. And in talking to his dad about what the circumstances were going to be when he got there, he basically it was going to be similar to what he'd had
In
with his
Dublin.
mom after they'd left, after his dad had left. And he did, I mean, it's like the potential was there for him to get bullied. And so it was like it provided him with a frame in which to make the decision to stay in Valley Cove as opposed to go to Australia. But it was something that he made the decision based on that, and he was making friends with people there.
Yes.
And discovering that he enjoyed being with people who also were normal and read books and listened to music and did these things and weren't in all cliques and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yep.
I like that you called that normal.
All right. Anybody have anything else? I know we're a little early, running a little early here.
I think
I
I
didn't,
know I'm pooped.
I know I wasn't on in the first part, but how are the other people? How are Ken and Tom?
Well, Ken has double pneumonia.
I read
Joe, you
that.
want to end the recording if we want to?
Oh, yeah, I should probably end the recording. Let's end the recording,
Okay.
and then we'll talk about all this. You guys done with talking about this? Let me see.
Yes.
And we already, well, before you end it, so we already have our next book picked, right? So we're
We
set.
already have our next book
Do you
picked.
know the date?
I don't
Yes.
know.
The date is December 17th,
Okay.
and it
I
is
remember the book. I was trying to remember.
it's State of Wonder by Ann Patchett.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to stop the recording.
Hmm. Well, Joe was back for a minute.
Oh, did Joe start it? Maybe she needs to
There
stop
should
it.
be a little red square.
Oh, the little red square? Oh, okay, got it. All right.
Patch it. Somebody patch it.
Ann Patchett, I think it is.
Thank you.